It happened on a quiet Saturday afternoon outside a busy shopping plaza in Charlotte. I had just finished picking up groceries when I saw her. A young black woman, maybe late 20s, athletic build, wearing a dark hoodie and workout leggings, was standing beside her parked car. She was scrolling on her phone, earbuds in, completely unaware of the patrol car that had just pulled up behind her. The officer, a tall white man in his 40s with a shaved head and mirrored sunglasses, stepped out fast, too fast for a casual interaction. He didn't approach gently. "Hey! Hands where I can see them," he barked, startling her. She pulled her earbuds out. "What?" I said hands where I can see them," he repeated, louder this time, drawing the attention of a few nearby shoppers. She raised her hands slowly. "Is something wrong, officer?" "No sudden moves. Turn around and put your hands on the car," he ordered. "What for?" she asked, confused but calm. "Suspicious behavior," he snapped, already moving toward her. More people started to gather. A couple froze mid-step, others pulled out phones. And then it happened, he grabbed her wrist. Not an arrest. Not a warning. Just, grabbed her. Forcefully. Gasps echoed across the lot. Her phone dropped. She tried to pull back instinctively, and he shoved her against the side of the car. A voice from the crowd called out, "Hey! What the hell are you doing?" Then another. She didn't do anything. The officer didn't let go. His grip tightened. But the tension around him? It was changing, fast. The officer's hand was still on her wrist, and she winced as he tried to twist her arm behind her back. "I said turn around," he growled. "I didn't do anything," she said, her voice rising now, not panicked, but firm. More bystanders had stopped walking. A small crowd was forming, 10, maybe 12 people, and nearly all of them had their phones out, recording. One woman in a business suit stepped forward. "You need to let her go," the woman said sharply. "That's not how this works." "Ma'am, step back," the officer snapped, still holding the woman against the vehicle. But no one stepped back. Another man, mid-30s in scrubs, stepped closer. "What's your badge number?" he demanded. "I said back up," the officer barked, now visibly flustered. His grip on the woman tightened again. "Let me go," she shouted now, pushing back just enough to free her shoulder, turning slightly to face him. Her eyes burned, not with fear, but with a quiet fury. "I told you I didn't do anything. You're grabbing me like I'm a threat." The officer looked around. He saw the cameras. He saw the eyes. And he realized, no one was stepping in to support him. They were all watching him. The air was tense. The sound of cars in the distance faded beneath the rising buzz of murmurs, phones recording, and voices challenging the officer's every move. "I want your supervisor, now," the woman demanded, breath steady despite the rough handling. The officer hesitated. His posture stiffened. From the crowd, a tall man in a gray hoodie stepped out, older, calm, authoritative. His voice cut through the noise. "She asked for a supervisor. You're required to call one. Do it." The officer turned to face him. "Sir, step back or you'll be detained too." But the man didn't move. Neither did anyone else. Instead, someone called out, "She's not alone. Don't think we'll just let this slide." Another voice added, "We got everything on video." The woman managed to pull her arm free, rubbing her wrist. Her expression was ice cold now. She stepped back from the car but didn't run. She stood her ground. "You better get your commanding officer down here," she said, locking eyes with the cop. "Because you just crossed the line." The officer's face turned pale beneath the sun. For the first time, he didn't look in control, he looked surrounded. A dispatcher's voice crackled faintly from his radio. But before he could respond, someone else spoke from the back of the crowd. Too late for backup. It's already going viral. The crowd had grown, 18 people, maybe more. No one left. Everyone watched. The officer stood tense, radio crackling at his side. The woman crossed her arms now, reclaiming her space beside her vehicle, her chin lifted defiantly. Within minutes, a second patrol car pulled up. Out stepped a shorter black woman in a crisp uniform, lieutenant stripes on her sleeve. She took one look at the scene and immediately clocked the mood. "Officer Jennings," she said sharply as she approached, "explain." Jennings looked rattled. She was acting suspicious. Wouldn't comply when I asked her to. She asked for a supervisor, someone interrupted from the crowd. She didn't resist, another voice chimed in. She was standing still when he grabbed her. The lieutenant raised her hand calmly, silencing the crowd. Then she turned directly to the woman. "Ma'am, are you injured?" The woman nodded slowly. "He twisted my wrist. Slammed me against my own car." The lieutenant's jaw tightened. She looked at the officer. "Step back. Now." Jennings looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He stepped away, his hands stiff at his sides. The crowd shifted, silent, waiting to see what would happen next. The lieutenant spoke again, this time to everyone. "Thank you all for staying calm. I'll be reviewing every piece of footage you've taken. If anyone is willing to provide statements, we'll take them now." She turned to the officer again. "You'll remain here until Internal Affairs arrives. Do not speak to the public." His mouth opened slightly, as if to protest, but the look she gave him shut it down fast. And just like that, the balance of power had flipped. The atmosphere had changed. What started as tension and confusion now settled into something more focused, like justice had finally stepped into the lot. The woman, still visibly upset but composed, stood next to the lieutenant. A young man offered her water. Another handed over his phone number in case she needed a witness. "I've got a full video," he said. "From the moment he pulled up." She nodded, taking it. "Thank you." The lieutenant was already on her radio. "Internal Affairs en route. EMS 2, in case she needs medical for that wrist." Officer Jennings stood silently off to the side, arms folded, jaw clenched, not in control anymore, not the center of the scene. People began stepping up one by one to give their statements. The crowd wasn't dispersing. They were participating. Eyewitnesses, phone footage, detailed accounts, it was all stacking up. And then, the woman turned to the lieutenant. "I need his name. And I'll be filing a formal complaint today." "You'll have everything you need," the lieutenant said. "This won't be buried." Jennings finally spoke. "This is being blown out of proportion," the lieutenant wheeled on him. "No, officer. What you did was out of line, and you know it. You don't get to dictate how people react when you misuse your authority." The crowd murmured in agreement. For the first time, Officer Jennings looked small. Two unmarked vehicles rolled in. From one, a pair of plainclothes officers stepped out, Internal Affairs. From the other, an EMT team approached with a small medical kit. Quietly, professionally, they went to work. The lieutenant gestured toward Jennings. "He's the one they're here for." Jennings scoffed, but said nothing. He knew this wasn't a conversation he could win anymore, not in front of witnesses, not with footage circulating online. The EMT gently examined the woman's wrist. "You've got some swelling," one of them said. "You'll want X-rays later just to be sure. But you're doing great." She nodded silently. The Internal Affairs agents approached her next. "We'd like to ask you a few questions, ma'am, if you're comfortable." "I've got nothing to hide," she said. "He does." The crowd, still thick around the scene, quieted as the agents turned to Officer Jennings next. One pulled out a notepad, the other clicked a recorder. "You are being temporarily relieved of duty pending investigation," one said. "Turn over your badge and service weapon." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. People weren't expecting to see it happen so fast. But Jennings hesitated only for a second before slowly unhooking his badge and firearm, placing them into a waiting evidence bag. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Wow, it's actually happening." As Jennings was escorted to the back of an unmarked vehicle, not in handcuffs, but stripped of authority, the woman watched in silence. No cheers. No gloating. Just a heavy, satisfying sense of balance returning to the street. After Officer Jennings was driven away, the lieutenant approached the woman again. "Would you like to make an official statement now, or later at the precinct?" She glanced around at the crowd, still there, still recording, still watching. "Now," she said. "I want this heard." The lieutenant nodded and stepped aside to let internal affairs do their job. One agent set up a small recording device, while the other began taking notes. "Please state your name and explain what happened in your own words," the agent prompted. She looked straight into the lens, unwavering. "My name is Ayanna Brooks. I was standing by my car, scrolling through messages. I wasn't breaking any laws. I wasn't being aggressive. I wasn't even moving. That officer rolled up, accused me of being suspicious, and before I could finish asking why, he grabbed me. He shoved me into my own car and tried to twist my arm like I was a criminal." The crowd grew quieter as she spoke. "I didn't resist. I didn't yell. I asked questions. He didn't like that. And if all these people weren't here?" She paused, jaw tightening. "I don't even want to imagine what else he might have done." The agent gave a slight nod. "Thank you, Ms. Brooks. We'll follow up soon." Ayanna turned and looked out at the crowd now, not with anger, but with strength. "To everyone who spoke up, who filmed, who stayed, you probably changed how this ended." There were no claps. No loud cheers. Just nods of respect. Because everyone knew something important had just happened, and it wasn't over. By the time Ayanna left the scene, the plaza had become quieter, but not forgetful. Conversations echoed in small groups as people lingered, trading stories, sharing clips, organizing what they'd witnessed. She drove herself straight to the hospital, had her wrist x-rayed, minor sprain. Nothing broken, but enough pain to remind her of what had happened every time she moved her arm. By nightfall, her name was already trending online. A 30-second clip, Jennings grabbing her, the crowd shouting, the lieutenant stepping in, had gone viral. News outlets picked it up before she even got home. Her phone buzzed non-stop, local reporters, lawyers offering help, even a few community organizers she didn't know. But Ayanna didn't post. She didn't grandstand. She wrote one sentence on her profile that night: "Thank you to every stranger who refused to stay silent." The next morning, she got a call from the lieutenant. "Jennings has been placed on unpaid suspension. Internal Affairs wants to meet again tomorrow, and the department is officially opening a use of force investigation." "And the footage?" Ayanna asked. "We've reviewed it. It supports everything you said." Ayanna exhaled. Her voice was calm, but firm. "Then I'll be pressing charges." There was a long pause on the line. "You'll have support," the lieutenant said finally. "More than you know." That week, Ayanna walked into the precinct not as a victim, but as a witness with power behind her. She was met at the entrance by a quiet but solid group of supporters, some from the plaza, others who had seen the video and showed up just to stand with her. A few held signs that read, "We saw everything. Accountability, not excuses. Respect is not optional." Inside, Internal Affairs sat with her again. This time, her lawyer was at her side. They went through every frame of footage. Her words, the crowd's responses, the officer's posture, tone, grip, it was all clear. No ambiguity. No justifying. Later that afternoon, the department released a statement to the press. An investigation is ongoing involving an incident of unnecessary force used during a non-criminal interaction. We are committed to transparency and accountability. But that wasn't enough for the community. A town hall was announced for the following week. Ayanna was invited to speak. And she accepted. Because it was no longer just about her. It was about what happens when power goes unchecked, and what can happen when people don't turn away. The auditorium was full, standing room only. City officials, local media, and dozens of ordinary people sat shoulder to shoulder. Some were there for answers. Others came because they'd seen the footage and refused to forget. Ayanna stood at the front, beneath the sharp lights, holding a microphone. She didn't read from notes. She looked out at the crowd, paused, and then began. I didn't come here to make anyone comfortable, she said. I came here because if I had stayed silent, if you had stayed silent, none of this would have changed. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. That officer saw someone he didn't understand. He saw a threat where there wasn't one. But what he didn't see, was you. All of you. Watching. Recording. Demanding better. She gestured to the side, where several members of the community who had filmed the incident Saturday. I wasn't alone. And that's why I'm standing here instead of being a headline. A city councilwoman stood up after Ayanna spoke. Then the police chief. One by one, officials acknowledged what had happened, and promised a change in policy, mandatory de-escalation retraining, civilian oversight on misconduct cases, and a formal apology issued directly to Ayanna. But the biggest moment came when the lieutenant who had intervened took the mic. What Ayanna did was brave, she said. But what the crowd did was powerful. That's the community we want. One where no one stands by in silence. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was solid. Real. When the town hall ended, people gathered around Ayanna, not to take photos, but to thank her. To promise they'd remember. That next time, they'd be just as loud. As she stepped outside into the night air, Ayanna looked out over the city and smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally shifted. Justice didn't come from a courtroom. It came from people refusing to look away.